Join us on Elisha's Space, where mental health meets spirituality. Today, we feature Dr. Amy Novotny from the PABR Institute, who champions natural remedies for stress and anxiety, leveraging her 12-year expertise. Dive deep into healing with host Elisha.
Hello, audience of Elisha's Space. I want to thank you for joining me for another wonderful episode. Today, I have Dr. Amy Novotny. She has founded the PABR Institute, and the mission is to provide pain, stress, and anxiety relief to those who are seeking a naturalistic form of treatment when other treatment methods have fallen short. So we're going to talk a little bit about mind-body connection and how we can move more holistically in a place of wellness when it comes to our mental health. So, Dr. Amy, I want to thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Could you explain the PABR method and its connection to the concept of emotions being stored in the body?
Sure. First, thanks for having me on, Elisha. It's wonderful to be here and it's nice to meet you and chat with you. And I'm glad that this is an important topic for you that you want to share with your listeners. So, when I started the PABR or PABR Institute, my goal was to look at how can we calm down the fight or flight nervous system to help people in chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
It shifted to not only include chronic pain, but also mental struggles, anxiety, stress, panic, PTSD, and trauma. And how do we get emotions that get stored in our body to leave our body and not be constantly instilled in the muscles? And so, what we're working on is when I work with a client, we're teaching them how to stop physically stimulating the fight or flight mode nervous system that's in the body. So that nervous system lies along your spine.
Mm-hmm.
How we carry ourselves and how we breathe can stimulate that nervous system to put our body on edge. When our body is on edge, anything that comes across to us as a mental or emotional stressor is perceived at a greater danger if our body is already on edge. So if we can start to learn how to get the body to feel calm and to feel safe in its physical self, mental and emotional stressors start to be a little bit easier to deal with. They're not seemingly as dangerous. And so that ties into emotions because when we're experiencing sadness, terror, fright, our body responds by muscles contracting to help protect us.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, those muscles, and it's usually a certain set of muscles, when they're contracting and you're experiencing that emotion, your body starts to associate those two phenomenons together. So, let's just go with terror. So, if I feel some type of terror, and my body tightens up. Now, let's say the pecs are a part that's usually one area where they tighten up. There's other areas, but we'll just use that as an example. My pecs tighten up and as I feel terror. If the terror goes away, if I'm not aware of releasing the pecs at the same time as the terror goes away, my pecs still stay in a guarded state because the body didn't get the message, okay, I'm safe now. So you go to sleep and then you wake up, your pecs are still tight because your body still thinks it needs to be in a guarded state.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a problem because over time your pecs get tighter and tighter and they just guard you as one terror adds on to another. The other aspect with that, and we're jumping in very deep. Your question really is taking us to the heart of everything. The other aspect is when I feel terror, my breathing mechanics change.
Mm-hmm.
Because my chest immediately goes up, my pecs go tight. Now my rib cage has adjusted its position. So now my breathing now reflects a fight or flight breathing pattern.
Right.
So that doesn't change until I change my position. But if I don't relax my pecs and if my rib cage doesn't go back down to a neutral position, my breathing's going to stay in a fight or flight pattern. So now you have multiple aspects of your body that's changed because I felt terror. And anytime I feel terror again, my body remembers, okay, really contract in these areas to help protect you. So things just kind of get into this cycle, and it just gets hard to break out of it.
Mhm.
And you just get looped into this pattern, and it becomes your new way. And so people, if they've been terrorized or suffered abuse as children, they learn this pattern very early. And it's unfortunate and it's horrible, but they have a hard time breaking out of it. And so as adults, not only are they trying to work through what happened to them as a child, but they're also feeling the physical aspects of it. And they can't really free themselves up because their body still remembers. And there's a fabulous book out there, which you may have heard about, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes,
It
I
talks
refer to it
about,
to my clients quite a bit. But go ahead.
right,
Mhm.
but it's slightly different. They talk about it in a different way than what I'm talking about, but it's a fabulous book, and I'm glad you refer your clients to it.
Mhm.
This gets messy though. It gets really messy. And so we have to work on getting the body to release whatever heightened state it feels like it's stuck in. And it does take some time. It really does. Did that make sense?
Absolutely, because I talk about this too with the clientele that I currently have, and have also discussed this in other talks I've given in other spaces and places. So I completely agree. And it's important to release. What I have found when working with others, and I do more when it's around trauma, the CBT types of things. And so when
Mhm.
I have found when I'm working with them is that I'll tell them movement is important. And once they start to release, they start to feel more fatigue because they're starting to have release. And I think that's also their body telling them, okay, I can relax now, which I think is very important too.
Yes. So the shifting over into fatigue is a good sign of going from sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So as they move, our nervous system loves movement, specifically reciprocal alternating movement.
Hmm.
So if you move and you're stiff and you're not allowing your body to swing and sway, and one side goes forward, the other side goes forward, you're not going to get as good of effect. But our nervous system likes that rhythmical alternating movement of your arms and legs. It's very calming. By doing that, you're training the body to contract, relax, contract, relax. That helps get some relaxation, which will help. It doesn't get the full relaxation of the nervous system learning to let go and stop telling the muscles to contract because of a fear.
Hmm.
But the fatigue that you're talking about is that partial with the movement and the alternating movement, the nervous system is starting to calm down. When you get into the parasympathetics, if you have any type of sleep deprivation and you start to feel some relaxation, then you'll feel this fatigue because it's a signal to your body, we need to sleep because we're deprived of it. So it's awesome and wonderful that your clients are experiencing this. So kudos.
In your experience, how do you see emotions influencing physical health, particularly to pain, stress, and anxiety?
So when you have a specific emotion, if it's a happy emotion, you can still get excited and be in a sympathetic state. But if it's an angry emotion or a stress emotion, you go deeper into a sympathetic state. And that sympathetic state causes muscles to contract, and those muscles pull your bones and joints out of position.
Mm.
So when that happens, you can get impingement, which is like things butting up against each other, impingement of tissues that leads to joint pain. And a lot of times people will classify that as arthritis, but it's not really the arthritis that's the problem. It's your muscles have contracted and pulled you out of position. That's the problem. So that can lead to musculoskeletal issues. But when you have the emotions triggering the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, that will cause digestive issues because part of this nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, there's another system called your enteric nervous system that's part of this. It's very closely lined up to the sympathetic nervous system. And we all recognize that. When you have extreme terror, your bowels go. They just
Hmm.
go.
Hmm.
You typically get diarrhea, you release. That's part of the body's natural response. It's a normal response and it's a response we want to have.
Hmm.
Obviously, we don't want to experience terror, but we do want the nervous system to be able to function the way it is designed, and that unfortunately is part of it. But this fight or flight status, it affects your heart, it affects your lungs, We've touched on the breathing a little bit. Your breathing mechanics change when you're in a fight or flight mode. Your breathing becomes more shallow. Your diaphragm isn't as effective. And that's a problem because we want the diaphragm to work really well because that helps stimulate the vagus nerve, which calms the body down. But the fight or flight nervous system also affects your skin because your skin is related to your gut. Your gut microbiome is very reliant on your body being calm and the parasympathetic nervous system being dominant. So we want relaxation, we want rest to be dominant so the body can digest well and your gut microbiome can do its work. You'll see skin lesions, you'll see different skin issues when you're in a stressed mode. We often associate hair loss with stress, so that's part of the integumentary system. Pretty much every system out there, you have your endocrine system, which deals with your hormones, that's highly affected by stress. We talk about cortisol. So when you have heightened emotions, your cortisol levels go higher. That becomes a problem. Initially, that helps your immune system, but over time, your immune system starts to break down because you're not designed to be in that way. So our emotions affect our health on every level and with every organ system. That said, I just want to say this. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to have those responses. You don't want to mute those responses and become a blank slate. But we also don't want to stay in those feelings for a prolonged period of time. And we want to learn how to regulate them and move through them in a safe way and an appropriate way.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that with my own experience with working with people, the mind body connection, the experience people have is very foundational to me because I do believe, science says it, interconnected. And in order to really experience healing, you have to deal with the different phases of our being. Now, you've kind of talked about the different layers of the nervous system. I'm concerned that the audience isn't going to understand what you're referring to when you talk about the nervous
Yeah,
system. Can you give like a brief overview so they can get an
absolutely.
understanding of what you're referring to when you talk about the nervous system?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking that. So, if we look at our body, we're made up of bones, our skeleton that hold us together. We have muscles that move our bones, and then we have a nervous system that tells the muscles to move. So, it's our communication to get our body to move. Okay, so that's one way to look at the nervous system. Our nerves say, hey, muscles, contract and relax. Now, there are different types of nervous systems in our body. There's the central nervous system, which helps run your brain and your ability to think and your spine. Then you have your peripheral nervous system, which allows me to move my fingers or my arms, allows me to smile, allows me to open my eyes and close my eyes. Then you have a nervous system called your autonomic nervous system. That one, we think of it kind of runs in the background and is supposedly automatic, kind of similar to the word autonomic, but it's not just doing its own thing. This nervous system does run on its own for a lot of things. It helps your heartbeat. It tells you to breathe. It helps your spleen work, your stomach work. It helps all of your organs work. It helps with setting your blood pressure. So it does do a lot of things on its own without you saying, okay, heart, I need you to beat so I can stay alive. But there's a part of that autonomic nervous system that we can influence. So this autonomic nervous system that runs our organs has three components. One is your digestion, which is your enteric nervous system. That's your digestion. When we eat, we don't have to tell our body, please break this food down so I can use it for energy. It just does it. Okay. Then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is resting, also digesting, relaxing, repose, sleep. So eventually you get tired enough and you need sleep. But there are people out there that are so wound up that they can't sleep. Their mind's racing. They can't close their eyes. There is something going on with them where the other nervous system, which is kind of the opposite, the sympathetic nervous system, is ramping them up. If you're in a burning building, you feel your whole body go on edge and you are doing everything possible to get out. If you're crossing a street and you see a car coming, you go on edge and you run. That's the fight or flight nervous system I'm talking about, that we don't want to exist in that system 24/7. It is designed to be there for emergencies only. And if we are living in that fight or flight state all the time, guess what? It's not going to be available for us in those emergencies because you're already in an emergent state. So we want to get it so your body is in that parasympathetic rest and digest relaxation state. We want to exist there for most of our waking and sleeping hours, and then occasionally spike into fight or flight mode when we need to. Let's say we want to go out for a jog, but then at the very end we want to sprint. Okay. During your jog, work on relaxing, work on letting the body just flow, and then sprint at the very end. That's going from parasympathetic to sympathetic. That's awesome. And then after you sprint, you calm back down, you start walking, you let everything relax, and your muscles release, they're not tight. That's now you're shifting into the parasympathetic. So those are still part of this autonomic running in the background system, but we can influence it. And that's what people didn't realize before, that we really do have a big impact on this system. So let's take advantage of it.
I think the audience has a better understanding now. So thank you so much in helping them to understand, which is why I recall times where people would say my nerves are bad. And I never really got what they were saying when I was a kid, when they would talk about how their nerves are bad. But after I started learning more about the nervous system, the connection it has with mental health, the better I'm understanding, oh, well, their nerves really were bad because they were highly stressed or they were in a heightened state, with different things that were going on that were in alignment with trauma. And so their nerves were bad because they were in a constant state. Well, I won't say constant state, but they were in a more of an often place of fight or flight. So their nerves were bad because they weren't like this all the time. Oh, I shook my hands, audience, like I was nervous.
Mhm.
Dr.
Yeah.
Amy, she saw what I was talking about, but I thought, well, the
Right.
audience probably isn't going to see me. So
Yeah.
could you share an example or a story from your practice where addressing stored emotions led to significant health improvements for one of your clients?
Sure. I started working with a lady. She was referred to me from a psychiatrist who found this method very effective for her clientele. And the lady was referred to me for stomach pain. She had suffered horrible abuses as a child. And it started coming up to her as an adult, and she was in her 60s. And she just was struggling to get these emotions out of her body. Unfortunately, part of it meant disengaging from her family that abused her. And so she came to me and she could barely sleep. She was having stomach issues. She was having digestive issues. She had some body pains, but she didn't realize that those were associated. And so she wasn't leaving the house. She had a job, luckily online, so she was able to still work, but she wasn't able to really do much out of the house and just enjoy herself. So we started working, and at that point, she only slept in one position on her back. And so when people sleep only on their back, that's a very big sign of being in fight or flight. If you're not moving around in bed on your side, flipping around, moving, then you know you're in a position of fight or flight when you're sleeping. So unless of course there's an orthopedic issue, but just generally speaking. So with this lady, she began working on freeing her body up. And now she's done a triathlon in her 60s. Just started. I mean, she started running, she started cycling, she started swimming, she's done a triathlon.
That's
She's
amazing.
she's climbed the highest peak in Arizona. And before, she never climbed mountains. She started a whole new career. She goes out socially. She traveled all over Europe. She's done incredible things because she took on the immense challenge of getting the body to relax and let go of the emotions from her abuses of her past. It's hard work, but she learned how to release it. She doesn't have digestive issues. She's eating all sorts of things. She's eating things that she before used to give her problems. She's
It also
super
sounds like
healthy.
she also maybe had some joint issues too. Am I off with that?
She did have some joint issues that she thought were separate, and she was seeing someone and couldn't get it fixed. And so we addressed those, and those are not issues anymore.
That is amazing. So she has a whole new life pretty much
She
from that whole
does.
experience.
A whole new life, yes. She looks completely different than she used to. Her life is completely different.
That's what I love about when you start to heal from those heightened or traumatic experiences. You don't even look the same. That's something I do enjoy seeing with people.
Yes, yes.
What techniques or practices do you recommend for individuals looking to release their emotional tension that may be affecting their physical health?
So the PABR method is what I do with people. It's something I've developed over many, many years, studying, practicing, implementing. And basically, what we're doing is we're going through a process of changing how you hold your rib cage position, get you to stop overusing the back muscles. So the nervous system that we've been talking about stops getting physically stimulated.
Mm-hmm.
So when your back muscles relax, they release this physical, it's like pushing a button. You stop pushing the button to say be on. And your body starts to change. And we work on your breathing mechanics to get them to reflect a relaxation type of breathing mechanics instead of a fight or flight heightened breathing mechanics. So what I recommend with people, because this is what I do, is it's a process. I teach them this process. So it's not standard stuff out there that you can do standard stuff like journaling, meditating, going out for walks in nature. But what we're working on with people, what I'm working on with people is something very specific to get their nervous system to stop being physically stimulated. And it does take time. We start off first sessions an hour and a half, follow-ups are an hour, and it's a minimum of 6 weeks to just teach basic information to get your body to change. And it includes, we have to work on you practicing different things over those 6 weeks.
Is this covered by insurance or some
Unfortunately,
insurances?
no. Unfortunately, no, it's not. This is all one-on-one, time-intensive stuff, and insurance does not cover, unfortunately. And most insurances only cover 15 minutes with the practitioner, and yeah, unfortunately, no.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask that question. What are some common misconceptions about how emotions are stored in the body and their impact on health?
I would say, one, people don't think your emotions get stored in the body. They think that the emotional mental system is separate from the body. And so we have to get people to realize, yes, whenever you're experiencing emotion, look at what's contracting in your body because it's getting stored. It's associated with that muscle contraction. The other thing I think people think when they're thinking about how the emotions are getting stored is that it's something that they can just stretch out. That if they just stretch, it's going to release. That's not really the case because when you try to stretch something, you're applying an external pressure to your body. You could overstretch a muscle, tear a muscle, but guess what? The nervous system is still telling that muscle to contract. So I don't tell people to stretch. I work on getting them to calm the nervous system internally so you can affect a change. The other thing with emotions and how it gets stored in the body is we don't often take it seriously or we try to suppress emotions. Suppression is not a way to getting your body free because your brain still realizes it needs to process. So getting people to realize, okay, it's okay to have these emotions. It really is okay. How I process my emotions is going to be different from someone else, and it's going to be different from another person. That's okay. So trying to find your way to process emotions is very critical, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy with you, Elisha, or doing something more nervous system related physically with me, whether it's talk therapy with someone else, whether it's EMDR with someone else, whether it's a hypnosis type of treatment. There's brain spotting. There are so many different ways that you can help yourself mentally and emotionally, that there is going to be a way that resonates with you. You may not have found it yet, but keep searching.
And I often tell people that, even in the podcast, that it's a journey. And what works for one person may not work for another, but there's no like cookie cutter way to like fit into what works for you, because I believe we're all made differently. We're all unique. And so when it comes to the mind body connection, our uniqueness takes a place in how we release and relieve things too.
Yep. Absolutely, 100%.
Although I would say that even though I think more people don't necessarily believe as much about the connection between mental health and our body, I would say the awareness of it, or the acceptance of it, is now starting to become more prevalent now. Would you say so?
Oh, it's been a huge shift in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Mental health is very much high on the priority list for many people, and it's wonderful to see. And so there's not the stigma. It's almost cheered on now, and I applaud the change.
Me too. All right. So regarding your PABR method, which I find very, very interesting, I know that it merges knowledge from orthopedics, sports medicine, geriatrics, as well as other sciences as well. How does this multidisciplinary approach enhance the effectiveness of the PABR method in addressing emotional storage?
I think kind of similar to what we've talked about is our emotions and stress responses affect every organ system. So when you're addressing pretty much any body problem, you want someone to look at all of the whole body. We're not just a finger, we're not just a knee, we're not just hair on our head. Everything works together. Our hair tells us something about us, our knee tells us something about us. Our emotions are tied into every aspect. It's not just our heart that's involved, it's not just our brain that's involved. You can sit and think about something in your past and come up with the emotion that's tied to that event, and you can feel how your body responds. I can think about my little baby laughing, and I just feel my heart thump a little bit differently. I can feel maybe my fingers tighten up a little bit because I'm thinking about this baby laughing and I was holding him. So everything comes into play. So knowing about orthopedics, knowing about geriatrics, knowing about the cardiovascular system, it's all important.
I know that you've written a book. It's one of the best-selling books out there on this method, and it's where you shared your journey. How would you say that your own experience with pain, stress, and endurance events, how has that shaped your understanding of emotions that have been stored in the body?
Well, this method, the PABR method that I've developed, it came from me participating in endurance events and training for them. So I was training on a treadmill, running 8 miles 3 days a week, trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon, getting my speed up there. And at the same time, my mother was passing away, and she was in my house under hospice care. And so I was under a lot of stress at the time. As I was going through all of that, I started working on my rib cage position and my breathing mechanics. And I realized if I held myself a certain way, if I breathed a certain way, my body calmed down and I could run faster. If I reversed it, things slowed down, I felt tight. And so I realized when I got off the treadmill, if I breathed a certain way for those 8 miles, I didn't have to stretch, foam roll, scrape, all these things that I was telling people that they had to do to stay pain free. I didn't have to do. And I also realized that I could release the emotional experience I was having with caring for my mom and with hospice coming in and out the door all the time. It helped me be able to run marathons pain-free. I flew through the qualifying marks for Boston, got in Boston 4 times, and had these experiences where I learned that when my body started to feel pain in the middle of running a race, it was because something got off kilter. If I could calm my nervous system down and get the muscles to release in the middle of the race, in the middle of the run, the pain went away because my body just went back to a neutral position. The bones were free flowing, the muscles were working correctly again, and I was completely fine. All while still running, not stopping. So I realized that I could do this in a physically stressful position of running fast, but I also could use this in the emotional aspect of freeing myself up with working with my mom and caring for her. So everything gets tied together, and we can use our bodies and our abilities to influence our nervous system to help us go through events so that we don't get stopped by them and hurt by them.
That is amazing that you ran the Boston Marathon so many times. That right there is a feat.
It was fun and it was emotional. I cried during the last mile. It was emotional. It was good. That was a good emotion, but it was still emotional because I never was into really running, but it turned into a very therapeutic exercise for me. And it was fun. It was good.
For our listeners who are intrigued by the connection between emotional storage and physical health, can you recommend some daily practices or routines to help manage or release those stored emotions?
Yeah, so things like journaling are good. So just in a general sense. Obviously,
Mm.
I'd love people to do my work, but that takes a lot of work and we have to get you to that point. But let's just say in a general sense, you can do stuff like journaling is very nice. I say go out into nature as much as possible. And when you go out into nature, go for a walk, but also listen. Listen and observe. Listen to the birds, listen to crickets chirp, observe. Basically, you want to heighten your senses so that you're getting out of your mind. So it's not your mind just ruminating on what happened to you in the past, but trying to pull yourself into the present. So a lot of these types of tools are very much what's recommended in the mindset space, becoming present space. They're all very useful. It's a matter of do you really do them? And do you do them with a full presence? That's the hard thing. It's one thing to do them and just do them for the sake, okay, I checked a box. But do you really do them and feel like I'm sitting here in a chair? Do I feel the chair under my butt pushing up against my thighs and my butt? I can. I'm really present in how my chair feels. And I can feel my butt pressing down because of my body weight. I can be really present. Can I use that to soothe myself? You can. You can choose to do that. But look at those things. Can you journal? Can you get out in nature? Can you eat food that nourishes your body? Organic fruits and vegetables nourishes your body and provides a very good food source for your gut microbiome to help you with depression and anxiety, to help you calm your nervous system down. Do you get enough sleep? Do you go to bed so that you have one sleep cycle before midnight? That means you should be in bed by 10 o'clock so that you're asleep by 10:30. So you get an hour and a half of sleep before midnight. You want to because your nervous system needs that time before midnight to calm down because the deep sleep cycle is predominant in a sleep cycle before midnight. And that's when your nervous system calms down. So there are all kinds of tips and tools that you can really do to improve your health.
Thank you for sharing that. I do think that your PABR method is quite significant and very important to use as well. And I am sorry to hear that it's not, although not surprised, but that's another conversation outside of this podcast that we could have. I'm sure we could have a lot around that topic regarding insurance and things of that nature. Where can those interested in exploring the PABR method further, whether it be for personal health or professional development, where can they start?
Sure. So a great place to go is my website. It's PABRinstitute.com. You can go there. There's plenty of resources. I have a YouTube channel with tons and tons of videos where people can learn and self-teach them and get plenty of information to get started. But yeah, so go to the website, PABRinstitute.com, and there's a place there where you can sign up for a free consultation if you want to do that, and that will get you going.
Dr. Amy, I noticed that I didn't talk about your book in the intro. So,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing a little bit about your book and where people can find that as well? And audience, I do apologize that I did not let you know that she is a best-selling author. So, go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. So I've co-authored a couple books. So Don't Quit: Stories of Persistence, Courage, and Faith, and then Success Habits of Super Achievers. Those are the Amazon bestseller books, and they talk about the story of going from not having enough confidence in myself, going from a job into developing this process and continuing on. I was also part of another book that was a Wall Street Journal bestseller called From WTF to OMG with a little LOL, Unpacking Entrepreneurs' Hidden Lessons. So that's a little bit more on the entrepreneur side of things. And again, how do we change ourselves to be able to do our dream and really create an impact for other people? And all of those you can get on Amazon.
Thank you. So, audience, in the show notes, I will have Dr. Amy's information. I'll have her website. I'll have her Amazon links regarding her books so that you can look to purchase that. And if she has any upcoming projects or anything coming up, I'll also have your YouTube channel. So, if you want to send me the link for that, so that way
Sure.
people can have access to that information as well. We are a resource for our worldwide community to try to get as much help and support as needed. I highly suggest, because I'm a big supporter when it comes to the mindset around the mind body connection and how it affects our nervous system. So I highly suggest looking into Dr. Amy even further. Are you able to see clients nationwide in the United States, or are you licensed in a particular area? How does that work?
So what I'm doing is coaching people, and I work with people worldwide.
Okay.
So it's all on Zoom, it's all online, and so I work with people worldwide and go from there.
Okay. So I'll make sure to share her information so that you guys will have that. You heard her say that she works with people online. So this pretty much wraps up our show. And let me say that it's not uncommon for there to be some sort of physical health type of condition and there be a tie when it comes to some aspect of mental health, particularly in, well, really any area, but particularly when it comes to trauma. And trauma can be what you might think of a slight thing, or it can be an even more severe thing. The important thing is to recognize, or even stress, because a lot of times the stress can rest in between your shoulder blades or, in your shoulders and your back area, those types of things. So make sure that you're paying attention to not just your mental health, but also your physical health. A lot of times what's missing is finding a resting place within the nervous system so that your body can release that tension when it comes to fight or flight. And so they have different things out there, and Dr. Amy is one of those out there that does provide a scientifically proven way to help you to release your body so that your body knows that you're in a safe place and that you're okay. And I'll also mention this, this month, where I'm taping this in the month of October, and I'm cognizant of the fact that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm also cognizant of the fact, audience, that a lot of things that have come out in the news have been around things that have resulted from a place of abuse or trauma. So it's more common than what you might think it is regarding the mind-body connection and needing to have a release in regards to fight or flight. So continue to do research on this. I'll continue to provide resources when it comes to this for you to explore. And in all that you get, my hope for you is that you continue in a place of healing, that you continue to get to a better place of wholeness, and within that, you find greater joy in your life, because we only get one. Thank you for joining Elisha Space.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. Now go, move forward in your healing journey.